you, and welcome to another episode of Simon Says Let's Talk Business on Business RadioX. This is your host, Al Simon, with Sandler Training by Simon Inc. And this is a great show and one in which we spotlight high-performing business professionals. We do this so that we can sharpen our skills and learn new ideas and concepts. We can share best practices, and we can get to know really smart people. So, listen carefully, take some notes, and look for their contact information at the end so that you can engage with our guest. As always, we will conclude the segment with a sales tip from me. We call it the Ask Al segment at the end. So, really pumped today. We got Tony Rushin, our guest today. Tony Rushin is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Network One. Welcome, Tony.
Oh, glad to be here, Al.
This is awesome. So not only are you a savvy business professional, but you also make great decisions on sales training since you're one of my clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Good training.
Yeah, so obviously you make great decisions. So really good. So Tony, tell us about Network One. Tell us what y'all do and how did you get into the business?
Yeah, so Network One is what's called a managed service provider. We offer IT services to small businesses in Metro Atlanta. A small business is basically a business that is too small to have their own in-house IT.
Okay.
And the managed services part of it is we're the company that comes in and not only fixes things when they break, but also puts in some proactive services that happen to hopefully make sure things don't break or that you can recover from that that file you deleted and you recover it from backups and have those firewalls protecting you. And those are what's called managed services.
Okay.
To make sure those are there.
Okay, and we're going to talk about cyber attacks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's a huge thing these days, right?
Yeah.
So we hear that term, managed services, and I think a lot of people think, what is that? But that's great description. So now, but I know also some of your clients do have somebody who manages IT, but they still need your services. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So you've got, we serve really two sets of clients, those that don't have any IT, and they're running their construction business or their law firm or their medical practice, and those that have grown big enough where they have one IT person in their company.
Okay.
And that person could be doing special software for them, or they could be doing what's called help desk and making sure things work there,
right,
or a variety of things. But they want more. They want some of the security software that we can offer, or those managed firewalls or those backups, or simply someone to help when the person they have goes on vacation once, twice, 3 times a year.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if they've actually got somebody who's supposedly an IT person or has some IT responsibilities. The fact is they need help, right? They need someone like y'all who understands systems and understands cyber attacks, understands backup, and can make sure that their data is safe, right? And make sure that their systems run so that they can just do what they do and not worry about the back end infrastructure. Fair?
Yep, that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's one IT guy on site, it's frankly a pretty lonely job too. So my engineers end up being the sounding board and the colleague for that person, and it often accelerates their learning and their ability to do their jobs for the client. So that's a side benefit.
Okay. So most of you mentioned most of your clients, your ideal client really is small to medium-sized businesses with who need help in IT services. But what's your geographic footprint for Network One?
Yeah, got it. And first, I'll put a little more definition on that. We have 120 clients in Metro Atlanta.
Okay. And
most of them are from 10 to 80 employees. So that when we say small business, that's the 95% of our clients are in that space.
Okay. Yeah.
And they are all in Metro Atlanta from a headquarters or main office standpoint.
Okay.
Obviously, some of our clients have branch offices throughout the U.S. and some throughout the world.
Okay.
So we end up supporting their whole company. We can't go on site to Seattle, but we have colleagues that do what we do in different cities that we'll find when we do need the on-site people in a different city. but we focus on Metro Atlanta, and of course, we can do a lot of what we do remotely with the technology.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to be on site,
right?
In a lot of cases, I understand that. Yeah, because we have that situation as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so why would someone change? Let's say that a company already has a managed service provider, but they think they need a different one or a better one. Why would they change?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think people change managed service providers as often as they change accounting firms or banks, right? Not often.
Right.
What we are finding traditionally that happens is the pain of living with who they have exceeds, hey, we got to fix this. And in today's environment, that tends to be happening in industries and with companies that are growing. So we have, for instance, we have gotten 5 or 10 construction clients in the last year.
Okay.
Well, why? Well, construction hasn't slowed down in Georgia, right? It's actually speeded up.
Yeah.
And people that have tolerated an MSP, an IT provider that was being less than responsive or wasn't offering the layers of security protection that the company thought they might need, or delaying the rollout of a project, they could tolerate that if they weren't growing. But now they're trying to maximize the revenue they bring in because they have opportunities, and IT becomes the bottleneck.
Yes.
And that's why we're winning construction companies, for instance, because they're done tolerating that, and they want to switch to someone that, is super responsive and can protect them better.
Yeah, that actually bears out in data that we have at Sandler. We have the Sandler Research Council, which does polls and market research. And one of the recent research projects that they had was, why do people change? And 68% of companies change service providers because they don't feel like their current one appreciates them. They don't they're hard to get a hold of. They don't fix the problem. It's not because they're searching for a better price. In other words, 2/3 of them is because they don't feel like they're being taken seriously and not appreciated.
Got it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah. We are finding one other driver, I would say broadly, is private equity has come to the IT managed service provider area. And what I mean by that is there's roll-ups are happening, or there's funding coming to certain of our competitors. What that demands that they do is grow. They often start growing to other cities, and they start ignoring, from the stories we hear, or paying less attention to their clients here in Atlanta, where we're 100% focused on Metro Atlanta. We have zero plans to ever change, and we are owned by one person. That's our CEO and president, and we don't take venture capital. So we're not going to get ahead of ourselves, and we're not going to have the demands of hyper growth. We're here for the long haul, and we're finding some of that dynamic going on in the marketplace.
So if our listeners are working in an Atlanta-based organization who feels like maybe their services provider today is getting a little bit too big for their britches, they can know that Network One is going to focus on them, right? You are focused on making sure your clients here in Metro Atlanta are taken care of.
Yes.
And one of those areas where I think that a lot of people are worried about is cyber attacks. Right, it's got to be your biggest thing these days, isn't it? That you work on? For
several years now, and it is a reality that when COVID hit, and everyone's world got turned upside down, right? I mean, it was crazy times and scary times.
Yes.
The bad guys prey on that. It's just plain and simple.
Yeah.
And so they would try to trick us and trick people with different kinds of what's called phishing emails and that, and basically want you to click on the link. So they've gone up, I don't think 100% in the last year, but like 80%, right? So if you've noticed, you're getting more.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not all the Prince of Siam kind of things, right? They're tricky. And we started investing probably about 3 years ago in much more robust layers of security services and solutions for our clients. And if any of your listeners simply Google what's the best way to stay secure on a fundamental level, any expert in the cybersecurity will say you want to have layers, because no single thing, like an antivirus, we all know what an antivirus is. Mm-hmm. It doesn't catch everything. By definition, an antivirus is reactive. It's got to get into your computer, and then it sees it. Well, if the bad guys just invented something new, your antivirus isn't going to know about it. So it's going to get into your computer, and then when enough of that goes out, the antivirus company will push the fix.
Okay.
But they're always behind.
Right.
But there's different layers. Some of them exist out in the internet, and from big companies like Cisco, that we have as a component of what we call OneGuard Plus, and it's layers like that if you have enough of them, that can keep you safe or safer. And then sometimes that the layer I was just alluding to from Cisco, you can get in, but the bad guys, until they link up with their headquarters, nothing bad can happen.
Okay, because of the layers.
And that particular product that's a part of our layer bundle can sense when something in your computer is trying to call out to a bad place, and I call it cocooning. My engineers wouldn't call it that, but they just prohibit that. So that's an example of how the layers work together that can increase protection.
Okay, so you started that about 3 years ago.
We started investing in more because with technology, the price to protect smaller companies keeps coming down. So with what I just described, that might have cost $50 a computer, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, now we bundle 4 different layers for $15 per computer. And those are 4 additional layers of security that we couldn't do that for our clients, 5 years ago even, but now the price point is such that we can give them a lot more protection.
That's tremendous, because I know as a business owner, I'm always worried about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What if someone gets in, and you call them bad guys? It's almost kind of funny. You would think that because they're so clever, they're so talented to be able to come up with these viruses and attacks, if they could just channel those efforts into positive things for society. It's just amazing how people think they have to break the law to make money.
I'm chuckling because I've had that same conversation saying the same things you're saying multiple times over the years, because, they are so smart. It's just they're doing it for bad.
They are. And maybe not just for money, right? Maybe just to prove they can do it, right?
Well, most of them are for money now. It used to be back in the old days, high school kids would do it just to see if they could do it or whatever. But no, these are money-making bad guys. Yeah.
Well, it makes for good TV, but it makes for bad business.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah. Okay. So, but you mentioned people don't change very often, sort of like banks. It's a hassle to change banks, right? And is it a hassle to change from one provider to Network One?
Great question. And for someone who hasn't done it, right, for that company that's looking to change, it looks like a huge hassle. We transition 20 to 30 companies a year.
Do you?
And it is not a hassle. We have an 189-step process that we go through.
189. That sounds real simple, Tony.
Well, what I mean is it's a checklist like a pilot has a checklist for a commercial airline, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to miss a thing.
Yeah.
And the IT provider they currently are working with, they're all professionals. In the 10 years I've been there, I've had one situation where the outgoing IT person didn't cooperate, and it was because he passed away suddenly.
Okay. Well, I guess he's got an excuse.
He's got an excuse, and he didn't have good documentation, so it was ugly.
Okay.
But the other times, they're going to cooperate. They're moving on to other things.
That is good to know.
And given 30 days, we've done it in a week. We've transitioned, but typically, given 30 days, you can do the planning, and there's absolutely zero hiccups.
That's great. Good to know, because that's your data, right? That's your stuff,
Right.
And yeah, to not be confident, I guess that's all going to be taken care of in the transition would be a bad situation. So, okay, so those of our listeners, if you're thinking about changing network service providers or managed service providers, you ought to think about Network One, 189-point checklist, and you don't have to worry about it because Network One worries about those things. That's pretty cool. Very good. Okay, how about cloud? Right, you hear that word all the time. Cloud this, cloud that. You know, you and I were talking earlier about you used to work for IBM and work on tape, tape machines, tape backup. And that was a long time ago. But now everything's in the cloud. So what is cloud? What does that mean? And how does that change your business?
Yeah. So cloud is a great, viable strategy for those small businesses, 10 to 80 people. And it's because these companies with huge data centers full of computers can offer a thin slice of that to the small guys now. When we went out 10 years ago and looked at public cloud providers, and nothing fancy about that, IBM's a public cloud provider, Amazon's a public cloud provider, Microsoft is the one that we've standardized on and vetted. There's this called Azure. We looked 10 years ago, again, for the small businesses, astronomically expensive.
Right.
So we built our own in a data center here, and it's just simply computers that exist not in your office but somewhere else. You got to rely on the internet to get to them. So I also think 10 years ago, the internet was here, but even in the last 10 years, it's gotten more stable, more robust, and all of that faster.
Right.
Now, there's this public cloud called Microsoft Azure and others that they can do it cheaper than we can. So as our equipment got older, we said, well, let's put you on this public cloud, and it gives you even more flexibility and more backup options. And what you need is a stable internet connection, but then you can connect from anywhere. And in COVID, right, you're not in the office.
Became so important.
You're somewhere else. You're at your home office. You could be at the beach. You could be wherever, but you've got the same experience, the same look and feel no matter where you are. And often the same look and feel whether you're on your laptop or iPad or iPhone.
So you have complete access to your data, to your apps, everything's there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, years ago, again, we're probably dating ourselves here, Tony. Maybe we shouldn't talk about years ago, but there was this concept called time sharing. Isn't the cloud like an extension of that? You
know, it's funny. I think my wife knows about fashion. I don't, but she says I'm out of date, right, with how I dress. Yeah. But fashion comes around, right?
It does.
It's the same thing in technology. It basically is time sharing.
Yeah.
You know, think of the cloud as you might put your own data and you choose the cloud, but then there's other that's very similar to the cloud called hosted solutions. Oh, the application I want, my application provider hosts it, right?
Yes.
And that's more like traditional time sharing because they've got the application. It's always up to date. It's always secure, and I plug into it.
Okay. Yeah,
Salesforce. A lot of people know that. That's a cloud solution.
Right.
So.
Yeah. A lot of our clients use Salesforce.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So, looking forward, Tony, what are the technology challenges you see coming at us in the near future?
The challenges are really the same as they have been, which is not really technology. It's people. Helping your people be most productive. Helping your people help you be secure.
Yeah, because most people, because of COVID, a lot of people started working remotely. Most business professionals feel like that's going to be pretty much the norm going forward.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't want to minimize the technology challenges because there are some, and I'll tick off a few, but it mostly comes down to, am I helping my people be most productive? And am I training them? And am I keeping them current on how they could leverage what I've provided to them so that they can work remotely or they can work wherever they need to?
Mm-hmm.
The technology challenges are, let's provide that stable remote connection. Now, what's changed there is a company can make sure they've got 2 internet lines from their office, and if one goes down, the other's always up, and so you're really decrease the chances of you being down.
Yes.
But they can't impose that on me working from my home office. Right?
Yeah.
So I've got what I've got
from
internet connectivity, and it can be great or it can be bad. And so that's what they're with their employees, right? They've got what they've got. Now, they've got the flexibility is, internet's down in my house, but it's not at Starbucks. But then you've got issues of working in Starbucks and confidentiality and of your, people looking over your shoulder, for instance.
Right.
So you've got that. But the technology challenge is remote connectivity.
Okay.
And as we rely more on the cloud, it's the speed of your connection. That's a challenge. And
okay.
So when people work remotely, are they working on the company computer or their own computer? Their own computer, the one the teenager uses to surf the web. Well, what do you have on there for protection from security? What layers do you have? So those are some of the technology challenges. Do companies have a standard of you've got to, if you're using a home computer, have this antivirus and this protection and these updates and that kind of thing?
So I imagine your customer service professionals understand all these challenges and can help pinpoint when things go bad, things go wrong. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, this is great, Tony. This is Al Simon with Sandler Training by Simon Inc., your host on Simon Says Let's Talk Business, and we've been talking with Tony Rushin, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Network One, a managed service provider for companies in Metro Atlanta, and you're doing great work. And Tony, appreciate you being with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So if our listeners want to get a hold of you and ask questions and find out if Network One is right for them, what's the best way to do it? Yeah,
they can hit our website, which is Network One, and then add the word consulting, so networkoneconsulting.com.
Okay.
And all our bios are on there. You can find me easily. And I'm right here in Sandy Springs. And like I said, we focus in Atlanta.
So Network One, and the one is the number one.
Yes.
So networkoneconsulting.com.
Yep.
Excellent. Tony, appreciate you being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was great conversation. Learn more about technology, which I guess we never learn enough. So this is Al Simon again with Sandler Training by Simon Inc. We're a sales performance organization, and we come to the part of our show where we call it the Ask Al segment. Listeners send in sales-related questions to us, and I pick one each time to address. If you have a sales-related question or a sales management-related question you'd like for me to get answered on the air, send it to my email address, al.simon@sandler.com, and maybe your question will be selected. Today's question that I selected to address is about LinkedIn, which is maybe the de facto social media app for business professionals these days. Probably is. But the question the listener sent in was, how do I use LinkedIn to get appointments with prospects? Excellent question. And I've got to preface this by saying, Tony, that I am not an expert on LinkedIn. I am not. But there are plenty of them out there. In fact, probably one of the most preeminent experts on LinkedIn happens to be local, happens to have been on my show before, and that's Greg Burkhalter, who really knows LinkedIn and focuses on how to build your brand, how to really leverage LinkedIn to make things happen. But I am an expert on using LinkedIn for selling. That's really what we focus on with our clients, is how to use LinkedIn for selling. And I can tell you that the way not to do it, I call it the connect and pounce strategy. And you see it so often these days, and it's really a shame because it's like the telemarketers that keep calling, and it turns off the prospects when that happens. And so, now real live inside salespeople who are doing legitimate work have a hard time getting through because people assume it's some kind of sleazy telemarketer, and so it just ruins it for the rest of us, and it poisons the pond, which is happening now with LinkedIn with people who do the connect and pounce strategy, to the point where you don't even know if you want to accept a connection request because you don't want to be immediately pitched right after. So let's not do that. Let's not connect and pitch, connect and pounce. Let's not do that. We've got to remember that LinkedIn is really a marathon, not a sprint. It's a long-term game. If you think about regular networking, in-person networking, you get to know somebody, you talk with them about what they do for a living, and it probably would not be appropriate in many cases unless the prospect suggests it, that you suggest an appointment on that first conversation. Well, LinkedIn might even be the same, but it might even be even more of a lag time, because really if you connect with someone who's in your target market on LinkedIn, and maybe even tell them in the message, the note that you put with the connection request, hey, look, I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to pounce on you and pitch you. I'm just going to look forward to seeing your content posted, and hopefully you'll look forward to seeing my content posted. And then from that point on, this person is in your target market, so you're going to look at their posts, you're going to like and comment and things like that, and then at some point in time you can suggest an appointment, but not right away. Maybe even not in the first few months, really, if you think about it. That's the professional way to use it. And of course, another real great way to use LinkedIn is to look at the direct connections of the people that you are directly connected to and see who you want to be introduced to, and in a professional manner ask for that introduction, which is one of the things that a lot of our clients look to us at Sandler Training to help them to craft those kinds of messages and carry out those kinds of tactics. So that's really the best way. And LinkedIn's a great tool for selling, but it needs to be used correctly. It needs to be used professionally, and not the old connect and pitch or connect and pounce. Just awful. So that's the Ask Al segment tip of the day. This is your host, Al Simon, with Sandler Training by Simon Inc. And Simon Says, Let's Talk Business on Business RadioX. And our guest today has been Tony Rushin, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Network One. Excellent company, Metro Atlanta-based managed services provider, does great work and can handle your systems, your data, keep you safe from cyber attacks. Tony, thanks again for being with us today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
And this is Al Simon signing off. And once again, good selling.